Now, the rest of the story. 196 BC. The Macedonian king of Egypt was then 14-year-old Ptolemy V Epiphanes, issued a decree forgiving debts, abolishing taxes, pardoning prisoners, and more. So remarkable was the king's magnanimity that the priests of Memphis inscribed his proclamation on black basalt, first in Greek and then translated into Egyptian hieroglyphics and then demonic characters. 2 millennia would pass before a fragment of the original basalt slab was discovered by Napoleon's troops near the town of Rashid. Roughly 2 feet wide and 4 feet tall, it resides to this day in the British Museum, where it is revered for its singular significance in the history of communication. For comparing the Greek text with its Egyptian counterpart, modern scholars have been able for the first time to understand hieroglyphics, and thus opened a door to the past that had closed softly centuries ago, an enlightenment which may be traced to a single artifact named for the town near which it was found, for in English, Rashid is Rosetta, and thus the Rosetta Stone. But will scholars centuries from now comprehend the languages of today? Well, to ensure that they will, a group of linguists has embarked on something called the Rosetta Project, a mission to preserve the languages of the world right now for posterity, starting with 1,445 languages. For it is estimated that without such an effort, 50 to 90% of them will perish in the next 100 years as the cultures which spawned them disintegrate. Now, how to record them? Serious archivists flatly reject digital reproduction. Indeed, a great deal of digital information, presumed safe for all time, has already disappeared. No, the Rosetta Project will store its data the old-fashioned way, in analog, which in this case means in writing, and not even in binary ones and zeros, but plainly, literally inscribed, just as the priests of Memphis recorded Ptolemy's munificent decree on a single permanent document. Paper. Well, you must by now have heard that many books are crumbling to dust before librarians' eyes, eaten alive by the acid in the paper itself. So paper, with its built-in self-destruct mechanism, is an unreliable medium for the Rosetta Project. One might once again, as in millennia past, carve the Rosetta text in stone. But nearly 1,500 languages might require a textbook the size of Mount Rushmore. So the scientists and engineers enlisted in the Rosetta Project have chosen metal, nickel to be precise, for the medium through which those hundreds of languages will be preserved, and the anticipated shelf life of the space-age Rosetta Stone is 2,000 years. For the proponents of digital everything, thrilled by home PC hard drives that now accommodate gigabytes in double digits, may tell you the analog world, hopelessly hefty, is over. But you tell them that the science of right now has developed a process by which many hundreds of languages, their vocabularies, their phonologies, their writing and grammar and numbering systems, plus extensive sample texts in each, may be micro-etched for microscopic recovery on a disc made of nickel, barely 3 inches wide. And now you know the rest of the story.
And now the rest of the story. Just imagine that several thousand years have passed here on Earth. Most of the languages we speak now have been lost to time. Perhaps the English language will appear to humans of the future era as Egyptian hieroglyphs once appeared before the Rosetta Stone was found. If they find a Rosetta disk, future humans will be able to understand what our lives were like, or at least our languages. Let's take a look at what we hope these future humans will find. According to the project's website, the Rosetta disk can fit in the palm of your hand, yet it contains over 13,000 pages of information on over 1,500 human languages. The pages are microscopically etched and then electroformed in solid nickel, a process that raises the text very slightly, about 100 nanometers off the surface of the disk. Each page is only 400 microns across, about the width of 5 human hairs, and can be read through a microscope at 605 times magnification as clearly as you would from print in a book. Individual pages are visible at a much lower magnification of just 100 times. The outer ring of text reads, "Languages of the world in 8 major world languages. The text begins at eye-readable scale and spirals down to nanoscale. The tapered ring of languages is intended to maximize the number of people that will be able to read something immediately upon picking up the disc, as well as implying the directions for using it. Get a magnifier and there is more. The container holding the disc is split into 2 hemispheres with the Rosetta disc sitting in an indentation on the flat meeting surface on the 2 hemispheres. The upper hemisphere is made of optical glass and doubles as a 6 times magnifying viewer, giving visual access deeper into the tapered text rings. The bottom hemisphere is a high-grade stainless steel. Since each page on the disc is an image rather than a digital encoding of ones and zeros, it can be read by the human eye using optical magnification. The disc sits in a sphere made of stainless steel and glass, which I explained, and it allows the disc exposure to the atmosphere but protects it from casual impact and abrasion. With minimal care, it can easily last and be legible for thousands of years. So what kind of information should we put into a very long-term archive such as this? Well, I can imagine many possibilities. A collection of the world's greatest literature such as Shakespeare or Charles Dickens, known cures for the diseases that plague humanity, blueprints for recreating major technology. All of these would be appropriate in collection we might like to leave for future generations to come. The Long Now Foundation, which created the Rosetta Disc, chose to begin by creating a key, a kind of decoding ring for any information we might leave behind in written form in any language. The Rosetta Disc collection has at its core a set of parallel information, the same text, the same set of vocabulary, the same kinds of descriptions. The idea to collect parallel text was inspired by the original Rosetta Stone, which had the same basic text inscribed in 3 different languages. By working back through known languages and scripts, scholars were able to decipher ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic writing, thereby unlocking the encoded history of an entire ancient civilization. At the very least, the Rosetta Disc provides an informative overview of human linguistic diversity in the 21st century. It isn't a great stretch to imagine that the language information on the disc could provide the key to the rediscovery of valuable society-sustaining knowledge far into the future. In addition to the original Rosetta Disc, engineers working on the Rosetta project spent 3 years on research and development to create the Rosetta Wearable Disc. Whereas the Rosetta Disc is about 3 inches in diameter, the Rosetta Wearable Disc is only about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, which means that it will be comfortably worn on the human body. The owner can wear it as a pendant, a necklace, as a bracelet charm, or several other ways. The goal here is to have as many of these Rosetta Discs on the planet as possible. The point is that having lots of copies keeps stuff safe. It makes it more easily accessible. As soon as I learned about the Rosetta Wearable Disc, I was determined to buy one. Unfortunately, they're currently sold out. It's good to know that people are doing their part to protect our dying languages. How has there not been a movie made about the Rosetta Project? I can see a futuristic scene where civilization has maybe collapsed. Maybe we've used up all the natural resources. But people had to abandon Earth. After 10,000 years or so, humans returned to Earth with little knowledge of the history of the planet, maybe not even understanding the language. They find one of the Rosetta Discs, then another, and another, maybe a wearable Rosetta Disc. Hundreds of Rosetta Discs with different information are placed all over the planet. They begin to learn what catastrophe led to the abandonment of the planet. You know, that's not bad. Maybe I should write that. I'm Brad Dyson. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this 10,000 years into the future, I hope my southern drawl doesn't hinder your understanding of the English language. For those of you living in the 21st century, as Paul Harvey would say, good day.